Can everyone hear me?
Sure can, JC.
Excellent. Are we ready to kick it off? Welcome, and we're going to wait till we everybody on some that wants to join so we can get this thing started.
Can you hear me okay?
Loud and clear.
Okay. You got me on video and audio.
I believe so.
Okay.
I think we could kick it off.
Take it away, JC.
All right. I want to welcome everyone to Keeping Athletes in the Game with our special guest today, Jay Brunetti. First of all, I want to thank everyone for taking time out of their day to listen to his experience and his advice on keeping athletes playing football longer, which is everyone's goal that's probably listening to this today. On one note, we're going to have a Q&A section at the end. So during the webinar, if you have a question, please put it into the chat, and we're going to try to get to as many of those as we can. That being said, I'd like to introduce you to a friend of mine that I've known for over 40 years. He's considered the Dean of NFL Equipment Managers, Jay Brunetti. Jay, I'd like for you to discuss and introduce yourself about your background and your experience. Take it off, Jay.
All right. Thank you. Welcome, everybody. Appreciate y'all taking the time to join us today. Yes, my name is Jay Brunetti. I'm the equipment director for the San Francisco 49ers. I've been doing the equipment business. This is my 48th season in the NFL. I've had the privilege and honor of being on a lot of successful teams. I've worked 9 championship games, 6 Super Bowls. I've worked over 900 NFL games in my 48 seasons. I've also had the pleasure of working with over 20 Hall of Famers in my career. You know, a lot of this obviously is kind of, hard to believe, but it's just been incredibly lucky and also, just very passionate about it. I think that's one thing that has helped me be in the position that I am for so long, is that I do have a passion for, the equipment, for the NFL, obviously, and then also for the equipment field and player safety.
Well, that's great, Jay. And I know that you're going to really add a lot to our topic today. And let's get started with it by keeping players in the game. Can you touch on really the media has focused so much on concussions over the last few decades? It's been the topic for everyone. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think, it's important to recognize that, all contact sports, not just football, but when you talk about, hockey and, the equestrian sports, lacrosse, all these other, sports, even soccer, they're contact sports, and obviously, injuries are part of the game, but, it's important to always be concerned about the athlete's health and safety. And, as an equipment manager, director, it's my responsibility to make sure that I'm up to speed on all of the, innovations, iterations that come up with safety equipment, because I have to pass that information along to the players. It's part of my responsibility to help educate and make these, these items available to them through the research, and then obviously also collecting all the data. So I think, it started with the helmets and and with concussions becoming, more of a focus. And obviously there were some serious incidences, well documented over the years with high profile players at this level. And so that was important, I think, for the league and just the doctors, the medical community in general, to look at this, take a deeper dive. So that's what's been happening over the past, probably 20, 25 years, and it just continues to evolve. And fortunately, the equipment is getting much more. It's doing a better job protecting the players.
Well, there's no doubt about that. And, concussions has been a major factor and really, I think, affecting the participation also. I mean, I think football and hockey and any contact sport, we've seen a decrease in athletes playing because I think the parents, they're concerned, which they rightfully should be. And as we talk more today, I think we're going to address some of those issues that will hopefully give them the confidence to want to have their youngsters play the game, because it's a great game, as we all know. Uh, how about some of the stories that you may have about, athletes that were injured and had to work through injuries, and you've dealt with them, and maybe it was a short injury or maybe it was an injury that could have ended their career. I'd like to hear a little bit about that.
Yeah, that's the difficult part of the job, is when you see an athlete suffer a major injury, and obviously, when we didn't know enough about it, 30 years ago, 25 years ago, it was just kind of, collateral damage. It was like, well, that's just part of the game. But now, with, again, starting with the helmets and the research, collecting the data points on injury rates and concussions and things of that nature, it's helped bring more information to the actual athletes and also to the parents when you're talking about youth and high school football, and also any other contact sport, whether it be hockey, lacrosse, those type of contact sports also. And it's important to be able to pass that information along, to make it available to the athletes. That's and to the parents, because that's the most important thing. Is information, is knowledge is power, and it helps the parents and the athletes make a much better informed decision based upon the data that's available now through the medical community, to understand just how serious not only short-term but long-term implications for concussions are concerned. I've had players over the years that have had some incidents where they've had some major injuries, concussions, and they've went ahead and for the most part, been able to, in recent years, been able to make those choices to make changes in their helmet selection, to actually take a deeper dive into the data to see what the best choice is for them to best protect themselves.
Well, that's interesting, because I know the years that you've had in the NFL, and your tenure has been so long, you've had to see different changes come about with the protocol. I know that it's a lot different now than it was even 5, 6, 7 years ago. Can you touch on how the protocol's changed?
Yeah, with the protocol, it's become more where they're go ahead and the protocol in terms of the number one is, I think, is the the research, the education, the data points they're collecting behind it. Then the second thing is obviously getting that information to the athletes and to the parents. That's critical. Then I think I believe on the college level, but I also know on the pro level, they have spotters, so they have independent spotters, because again, we want to have as many eyes as we can on the athletes to keep an eye out for them, because there's for many decades, there was a term used where you almost had to protect the athletes from themselves. They wanted to, they didn't have the information, they wanted to play so badly that they would sometimes compromise their health decisions by just saying, well, minimizing the effects of a big hit that they may have had in a previous game or practice, and wanting to get back there on the field. And now, the spotters help filter out those poor decisions that they may make because they just want to continue to play in that particular game. Also, self-reporting. There's no longer, which is really great. It kind of goes along with just in society in general with with the awareness of mental health and things of that nature, is there's no more stigma, there's no more shame attached to admitting that you have an injury, admitting that you're struggling with recovery of that injury. So I think that's a very positive thing that has happened, where the players are able to communicate clearly to, whether it's a coach, a parent, a doctor, an athletic trainer, that they're struggling with a head injury, and it's not taboo anymore, where people think that that makes you weak or not tough if you take yourself out of the game. And the coaches also are more aware of that also. They're also more respectful of the athletes when they make those choices for themselves.
Well, that's true. I mean, I think, as you know, players don't want to leave the game. And that's probably one of the toughest things. But I think the league has taken a step back, and I think college and you mentioned in the NFL with the spotters, and what they're doing is they're doing the best for the player to remove the player out of the game due to, it could be long-term effects of it. Also, there's been many innovations I'm sure that you've seen from the standpoint of equipment, of turf, that have really laid the groundwork for, maybe to make the game safer. Could you touch on some of those for us?
Yeah, so I think that's a good a few points that you touched on there that are really important, because just in general, when you look at almost every aspect of the game, looking at the relationship between the athlete and the turf field, field turf in general. And it was, back in the day, it used to be AstroTurf, which was was very, very dangerous to the athletes, health and safety, to their lower limbs. Obviously, when you talk about knee injuries, you talk about ankle injuries, turf toe, foot injuries, and then also obviously concussions, because the AstroTurf back in the day was so thin, and obviously the foundation of that was either blacktop or some type of concrete base foundation, and then a thin padding on it. And then obviously when there was players getting tackled, hit in their head, it was almost a whiplash effect of their head hitting the turf, and they would receive concussions due to that impact with the ground. You do have those in grass also, but obviously grass is more natural and more forgiving. And then obviously the manufacturers themselves have continued to innovate and evolve, do a lot of research, collecting a lot of data points to again help in their development of safer equipment, trying new materials, trying different configurations. One of the configurations that I've seen that's kind of been major is the offset of the helmet. Back in the day, the helmets were more just contoured and shaped to the shape of the players, the athletes' skull, their head. And now they have more of an offset, because they're allowed to. That has allowed them to put in more padding, more impact padding, more. And with the Visus helmet, they have another subshell in there that helps dissipate and attenuate the energy from the blows that the players receive, in field of play. So those innovations have helped tremendously.
Yeah, when you talk about the helmets and the oversized helmets, I remember that the Schutt came out with the DNA years back, and it was a larger shell than what was really commonly used. But as you touched on, that larger shell gives you the opportunity to put more padding in there, and the object is to, as they say in the engineering field, is to slow the ride down, slow that energy down before it actually gets to the player to cause the damage.
Mm-hmm.
Another point, Jay, is that I'm sure that practices have changed. I think that when you look at contact during the practices, I know it's changed in the high schools here in the state of Texas, but it's all started when you look at the NFL. How many pad days do you have, and how many hitting days are there in camp?
Oh yeah, that's been greatly reduced again. I think the emphasis has been placed on understand collecting the data and then analyzing it, and then obviously acting upon it. So, yeah, there's been a lot of research done and collection of data points when it concerns practices, because, when you talk about, whether it's a high school and they're reporting, for August when they're going to start training for the season and stuff, the players, the athletes haven't been in that, kind of practice and game, contact mode for months, and then they jump right into it, and there's adrenaline, there's, excitement, and they get out there and they start hitting right away. And obviously they're not prepared for that. And you see a lot of injuries, and they just interpret it, the data points also to the degree saying that you can still have a quality practice that gets the athlete ready for the game as far as the game plan is concerned, the execution of the game plan, without having overly physical practices, because the games are always going to be filled with physicality and contact. So it's almost like being smarter about it in the practice realm, and saying, well, we don't need to subject the athletes to big hits on a practice on a Wednesday or a Thursday before they're going to play on Friday night or Saturday afternoon or Sunday afternoon. So they've, again, they've had the courage to, really step out on the limb and say, and change, because change is difficult for everybody, right? So you look at, the coaches then, and, and back in the day, they wanted, they felt like if, you had to practice, you played like you practiced. So if you practice really physical, then you were going to play physical. But they kind of realized, what, we can still practice and not be so physical, and be physical in the game. And again, that's helped the athletes, have more of recovery time from the game, and then also not expose them to additional injuries and practices. So, at the pro level, during the season, they're only allowed to have one contact practice a week, which is typically on a Thursday. Otherwise, you're just looking at making sure that the players are, practicing the game plan, executing, muscle memory, going through, the steps, and even with the linemen, the hand placement, where they don't have to smash into each other, but they're just getting down their movement and their hand placements without, being so physical in practice.
Well, yeah, the game's changing, on an annually basis when you look at it from that standpoint, which is great. So, what do you think about the innovations with Gator Tech and the new product that they launched with the Gator Tech Shiesty?
Yeah, no, I'm very excited about that. I think it's going to be a great addition to, the sports world when you come to all contact sports. In particular, for me, it's football. But I think, again, what you've seen over the recent years, again, is, some add-ons, for helping, protect the players. You see it in, these high school 7-on-7 leagues and things like that, where they can't wear, they can't wear, uniforms. They can't wear protective equipment per se with the helmet or shoulder pads, but they're putting some type of protection on their head. I think the Shiesty plays into all of this, because again, the other products out there right now, I don't think they're really as advanced. I don't think they have as much, research and development behind it than the Shiesty does. And the Shiesty itself, again, I think is another line of protective equipment that the athletes can wear to, again, help mitigate any of the injuries that they may be subjected to in practices and games. And a lot of people, I think, also lose sight of the fact that, the focus is always put on the game, right? It's like, oh, the game, but practices, if you break it down, athletes play typically one game a week, if you look at football in particular, but yet they have multiple practices during the week. So I think protection and practice becomes almost more important than the game, because you have more practice sessions than you do games during a season. And again, they have incorporated obviously less, contact practices. But that being said, there still is contact, because, you just can't help when you have, 22 people running around on a field. So there's still going to be some contact. So I think that, the Shiesty is a great, piece of equipment for, all athletes to consider wearing, to give them another line of defense in protecting themselves from, head and spine exposure as far as injuries are concerned.
Yeah, I think, when you look at the Shiesty, just looking at it from my standpoint, is that a player puts it on, I think it gives them a feeling of protection and of comfort. Everyone wants to have that edge, which is very important in any kind of sport you play. And I think the Shiesty makes an athlete feel a lot more protected and more comfortable. And I think that's part of the company's motto is, to keep players in the game and keep players safe. What's your involvement with Gator Tech, Jay?
So yeah, I was, had the opportunity to, again, part of my job responsibility is to always, be on the lookout for equipment, in particular safety equipment, innovations and, things that can help better protect, the players, the athletes. So, I'm on the advisory board. I was very excited to, kind of, again, go outside the box in terms of looking at right now. A lot of the add-ons are external, right? They're on the, the outside of the equipment, but the Shiesty is obviously, going directly on the athlete's head and before they put the helmet on. The great thing about it is, obviously the Shiesty uh, offers a ton of advantages. Number one, it's very similar to a product that a lot of the athletes wear in football, which is a balaclava that they wear in the wintertime to give them extra warmth. So it's a piece of equipment that they're very familiar with already wearing. It's lightweight. It's got great data points in terms of increasing the protection for the athletes in terms of their head and their spine, their neck. It's very comfortable for them, and I just think that it's going to really help all athletes at all levels, be able to better protect themselves and again stay in the game as opposed to right now. If you look at traditional, sequence of how these injuries occur right now, there's a major event, and then you end up being reactive at that point and going, well, okay, now we have to react to that event, and how can we get them back on the field safely? And the Shiesty, I think, is something that can circumvent that, and they put it on to be proactive and keep them in the game because the data points are showing that it will help reduce those concussive and other trauma to the head and neck, and that's really important.
I agree with everything that you just said. It's important. And, also, I think if you look at Gator Tech's, the innovation, the changes, and, they came out with the Gator skin. Now we have the Shiesty. And I think the changes that were implemented were a company listening to the athlete, listening to the coaches, and listening to the players. So if you could just touch on that just for a moment, on you think, a company that listens for changes and makes changes really has a concern about the athlete.
Correct. Yeah, that's a good point you bring up, and I'm glad that you touched upon that because it is important. I've seen a lot of that over the years where, I'm always dealing with the end users, right, with the athletes, and I'm kind of the conduit because there's only so much information that manufacturers can gather from externally because they can't always gain access to the athletes or to the organizations and as far as that is concerned, that's shown their ability to really shine when it comes to being concerned about the players' health and safety. Because I've dealt with a lot of other manufacturers where it's basically they just bring a product to market just with doing some testing and saying, okay, here it is. And with the Shiesty, they've been evolving, doing iterations of it, listening to putting it out there, putting it, wear testing it, getting it on athletes, making sure that they're getting feedback, because that's so critical. You have to get feedback from the athletes in order to best serve and best protect them. And Gator Tech has done that with the Shiesty to really, again, listen to the feedback, because that's not always the case. They just kind
No,
of sometimes try to cram it down your throat, and it's like, no, you're not listening to me, and I'm not telling you I'm telling you because that's what they're telling me after trying it.
Well, that's so true. And let's get into some questions that our attendees have sent out. One of them is that how do you handle the search for new equipment and implement a player to wear it? Because I know you probably see a lot of things and that's better for the athlete, but how do you, the word convince, or what do you use to convince a young player to wear something?
So what I do is I like to use the term, it's my responsibility to help educate them. It's, obviously with, the internet and all of that, it's very easy to, search. And that's what I'm constantly doing, not only through getting information through the manufacturers of the traditional, equipment, whether it be helmets, shoulder pads, cleats, and things of that nature, but then obviously just kind of doing searches on the internet, using our community of equipment managers around the league to, communicate with each other when we find out, new equipment innovations like the Shiesty. So, then I get that information and I go ahead and I make sure that the athletes are, that information is available to them. I'm in communication with them almost on a daily basis, but certainly a weekly basis when it comes to their equipment. And they're very also, I'm very impressed with the athletes today at my level, and I think it comes with the grassroots kind of program where it comes up, where it starts at the high school level, then they go to college, and then they continue learning and wearing equipment that that they wore on the high school level, and then it comes to the pro level. And I think I've seen that over the years historically, where sometimes at the pro level they unfortunately they want to they want to still be more reactive than proactive. But I think I've seen it over the past couple of decades where the athletes are more informed, they're more educated, they're more interested in being active in their their own health and safety is concerned.
Yeah, another question that came in, I think it's a very good question, is when would you want someone to start wearing a Shiesty? I mean, is that something that you would wear previous to a concussion, uh, or after you've had a concussion? And position wise, let's look at the positions. Where would a Shiesty fit in your thoughts?
Well, I think I think as far as addressing the first part of that question is, I would say I think you would wear it from day one. I mean, again, I've used the term, and I think it's very important. You need to be proactive instead of reactive when it comes to player athlete health and safety. So clearly, when you have a product like this that can help from day one, help reduce and mitigate the severity and the effects of head trauma and neck and head trauma, I think it's important to wear it from day one. The second thing is, again, with the players, having them again exposed to it from from day one is also important across the spectrum of all positions. So I don't think it's not position specific. All players, even punters and kickers from time to time, obviously a very, very low, smaller rate, but they're involved in contact.
Sure.
So all positions, whether it's a lineman, a running back, a linebacker, or even a wide receiver, they're all exposed, to the contact, to the physicality of the sport. So therefore, they all should be wearing it. And again, it's my responsibility to pass that information along to the athletes, to give them again, it's about educating them. I don't make those decisions for them. I don't think I should, but I should bring that information to them. I should talk to them about it and have them understand from my perspective, what benefits it can offer the athlete. And then they make
Sure.
an informed decision based upon that.
Well, that's great. And also, I'd like to wrap it up. And we have a lot of questions here. And if you have additional questions out there and we didn't get them answered, please you can get a hold of Kelsey at gatortech.com. Email her and we'll get your questions answered, the ones that were in the chat. But can you give us some of the tricks of the trade, being the equipment manager that you have been for so many years, and how can an organization manage their equipment?
Yeah, I think, sorry, I'm going to put on my glasses here. That, I think a couple things you have to do. Obviously, for me personally, that I think have served me well is, you've got to be a great planner. You've got to always be planning ahead. You've got to be very organized, and you need to embrace your role and be a partner in the athletes when it comes to their, health and safety, when it comes to their equipment. So, again, from head to toe, obviously the headgear to the shoulder pads to the cleats, all the other protective equipment. Again, it's my responsibility to, learn about these, changes, innovations, again, mentioning the shiesty, but again, that's what we're talking about here today. Making sure that when it comes to every level from head to toe with the players, with the athletes, that they, are again aware of and exposed to, all of the information and the actual products themselves that are available to them to give them more protection to, stay in the game. And, the shiesties, certainly in that family of products that,
Well, I
that
appreciate it, Jay.
yeah.
We're getting right near the end of this, and I
Okay.
want to thank you for your time today. I want to thank everyone that attended this for taking their time out of the day. If we didn't get to your questions, again, if you'll reach out to Kelsey at gatortech.com, we'll get your questions answered. No matter if it's a high school, college question, or a youth question. Again, we appreciate everyone joining us today. This will be one of many going forward on different topics. But again, thank you from Gator Tech, and everyone have a great day.
Thank you.